Hey everyone, good morning. Happy Saturday. I am here for my darling reflectors, and I cannot tell you how much curiosity I have for reflectors. And it's like this curiosity that goes right alongside admiration. Reflectors are such incredibly unique beings that I'm going to do my best to articulate how reflectors are best seen, with the sort of asterisk that no one really knows. Okay, so if you're a reflector and you're listening to this, it's really challenging for you to be seen. We're going to talk about that. There's so much fluidity there. So I am going to do my best to sort of paint the picture of what it means to be a reflector, and also offer to you, the invitation is to just sit with that and be with what feels correct for you, at least in this moment, and to let everything else go. So welcome, I am Bryn Brown, and I am dedicating today all to reflectors. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay, so reflectors are 1%, perhaps even less than 1% of the population. Very rare, very unique beings. There are the hallmark of being a reflector. Here, let's just do a screen share and we'll look at a chart and talk about what makes reflectors so unique. So I just made this chart up. There are not a lot of famous reflectors simply based on the numbers, right? Less than 1% or 1% of the population. Sandra Bullock is a famous reflector. So you can certainly begin to look at famous charts of famous reflectors to get an idea, as well as your chart. But this is what you might see in a reflector chart. Now, here's the thing. You notice none of these centers are colored in. There is no definition in the centers, and that is how we know someone is a reflector. So there are no channels, meaning that none of these centers connect to any other. All right, so what that means is, so here's a couple things about the centers. One, when you have an undefined center, it is an area where you take in energy. So if you have a defined center, you're emitting energy, you're emitting your signature imprint, your unique flair, right? Your way of seeing the world. You are emitting that out into the energetic field, into the quantum field at all times. When you have an open center, you're receiving information in that center at all times. Not only are you receiving it, but you're receiving it and amplifying it and sending it back out. I like to think of an open center kind of like a mirror, where in the sun, the sunlight comes in, it reflects it, it amplifies it, concentrates it, and sends it back out. I hope that makes sense. That's the way that I see these open centers. They're like little mirrors. So for a reflector, you have all of your centers open, meaning that you are receiving information, you are amplifying that information, that sensation, and you are reflecting it back out, okay? The other thing is that without connecting any two centers at a minimum, there are no, when we have a channel connecting two centers, it actually gives you sort of these life themes that are really present in your life. Now, you have definition as a reflector. There are going to be gates that give you some definition, that you have something to sort of hold on to, but there are no channels. There are no major life themes here. You're simply a walking mirror, which is so fascinating, and has its own strengths and its own challenges. So we'll get into that. So those are the hallmarks and the chart of what it might look like to be a reflector. So as a reflector, in all of that openness, okay, this is what we're really thinking about, is this openness in your chart gives you this superpower of being able to receive everything around you. It makes your environment incredibly important. Now, when I say receive everything around you, I'm talking about your physical environment. I'm talking about astrological cycles, right? And astrological points and what's going on in the stars. I'm talking about other individuals in your environment, in your energetic field, in your life. Okay, so now the reflector as a reflector, your not self and your signatures. These are the two things that we talk about with every type that allows us to know whether we're sort of in alignment or not in alignment. Your signature is surprise. Reflectors have this incredible way of seeing the potential in everything and everyone. And because of that, when someone lives up to their potential, or when a situation lives up to its potential, there is this surprise, this delight that a reflector feels like, oh, you actually did it. Because the not self theme is disappointment. And that can have a little bit less to do with whether or not you're living by your strategy and authority, and more to do with your environment. Okay. So I'm just going to pause to point out, I have 2 centers defined. That is, you can either have none or you have 2, you can't have 1. So I have a lot of openness in my chart. I'm sharing with you what we know about reflectors. There isn't a lot known. Okay. So I know I sort of gave the asterisk in the beginning to just be with this information. There isn't actually a lot known about reflectors because it is so rare and so unique. So I'm just going to give you the way that I see it and the way that I've learned it. And if you have a different perspective, I would absolutely welcome you sharing that with me. Send me a DM, shoot me an email, and let me know how it resonated, if it resonated at all, and what your reflections are on it, because you are an enigma as a reflector. So there is this sense of disappointment that can come up quite a bit when you can see the potential and you're feeling constantly disappointed that people aren't living up to that potential. Okay, so the opportunity here is to really detach a little bit from that, from whether or not other people in your life are living up to their potential. And if they're open to your reflections, you can certainly support them as you do in your own way, but it's not your responsibility. So that's really the opportunity here. So surprise and disappointment are definitely themes that you're going to notice as a reflector. Reflector's purpose in the big grand scheme of things is to really be the barometer of health of the whole, of the collective, of society. So the reflectors you're going to reflect back everything, the best of the best, the worst of the worst, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. You're reflecting all of that back and amplifying it. So for reflectors, really, you're here to be the barometer for society as a whole. So we used an analogy yesterday with projectors around traffic. Okay. So if a manifestor is the driver of the car, they're initiating, they're deciding where to go, then the generators are the car. They're the ones that actually get us from point A to point B, right? They're the ones that actually move things along and make things happen. Projectors are sort of this guide up in the sky that is kind of like directing traffic and making sure people know that there are obstacles ahead, or there's going to be some construction over here, right? So they're instrumental in that way of just making sure that everything is going to plan and everything is going as well as it possibly could be. And I can't remember where I heard this analogy, but this is the one that I've heard that makes the most sense for me. That reflectors are then like the drones that are sort of like kind of coming in. They're a little bit lower than the projectors in the sense that they're a little bit more connected because they can see everything that's going on, and they're reflecting that back to say, okay, this is just not good at all, and we need to become aware of this, or this is really amazing and we need to become aware of this. So reflectors may find themselves interested in becoming an activist of some sort, because their reflections are really helping to, again, it's this collective energy that they're sort of trying to reflect back and say, hey, something is not right here, or something is really good. Let's keep this up. Okay. So that's really the purpose of the projector. So again, when I say that you can see the potential, you can see the potential for the collective, for the tribe, and for the individual. And that can be a real challenge if you're too attached to what that potential may be, and whether or not that person or the group is living out their potential. And then it's about finding the right place to place yourself in order to reflect it back to the right people that can make the change that needs to be made. Okay. Environment is everything for you. Reflectors are literally one with nature. Okay. So anytime I meet a reflector, I am always curious, how much time are you spending in nature? There is this element, because you're so open, of just being projected on at all times. So not only are you receiving, again, all the energies that be, but then you're projected on because people see themselves in you. It's like looking in the mirror. So you're reflecting them back to them, which people can love, by the way. So people love learning and seeing more about themselves, right? And it can be off-putting in some scenarios because some people don't want to see those things about themselves. So you're reflecting, so people can have this, really, it's like this dual experience that you can have with individuals where it's like they either just love you so much, and that's usually the response that I notice for reflectors, is people just love them. They become like the cheerleader and the mascot in corporate. They can be like the best, maybe working in HR or something, where they really are the champion of the organization if they love it, right? Because they're reflecting back the best of the best. Alternatively, you may experience, again, in that duality, that people have a hard time as well seeing these parts of themselves, right? But ultimately what's happening are, people are coming to the reflector and they're really projecting onto the reflector. So it becomes very hard to see you for you. And it's not even really clear as a reflector if you can see you for you. There is an inherent fluidity here. Okay. There is no fixed way of being like you would have when you have a defined center. And that's perfect. It's perfect for you. That's what you're here to do and to be. And there is nothing wrong with that. So really owning that fluidity and learning how to work with it can be life-changing for a reflector. Just want to make sure I cover everything here. So if you are a reflector and you are not experiencing the things that you want to experience, things aren't going well, maybe your health is not in top shape, or maybe your relationships are not great, you really want to look at the environment that you're in. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And are you even in the right location? Are you in the right home? Are you in the right city? Are you in the right state or country or part of the world? You may need to relocate because the environment is so critical for you. Really feeling into different environments is going to help you understand where you're actually meant to be. Okay. So I want to hit that point, drive that home, because it's really, really important. So for a reflector, your strategy. So let's go here. So your strategy is to wait a lunar cycle. Okay. This is what is taught in traditional human design. And this was the information that we received. And the vast majority of people are not reflectors. And on top of that, we don't live in a world where it's okay to wait a month every time we need to make a decision. So what I want you to begin to look at, wait a lunar cycle, the bigger the decision, the longer you should give yourself, okay, to make that decision, and really feel into it and really feel, what does it feel like to go through the cycles of the moon? How does that influence what, the experiences that you're having, the time that you're spending in nature, really being in your own element and feeling into that decision throughout time can help you to find the clarity that you need. Now, again, we live in a world where you can't necessarily just wait a month to respond to an email or to go to the grocery store. Those are not necessarily the decisions that need the time, okay? The bigger the decision, the more time you want to take. So I would encourage you as a reflector to really give yourself time to make your decisions. I say this to anyone who has an emotional authority, is, to just tell people to become best friends with the phrase, let me get back to you. Okay. Let me get back to you. Let me sit with this. I'm not clear right now. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Really beginning to let people know that, you need some time, and feel into that. Okay. And feel into it and allow your decisions to just sort of unfold rather than trying to make them with your mind, if that makes sense. So with that, really taking your time with things, that's an important just overall strategy for you. Recognizing that when you're in the energy of other people, you are taking that energy and you are rolling with it. We call it, so if we have for those of us who have an undefined sacral center, which includes you, reflector, we can sort of churn that sacral energy. And that happens for me personally. I have none of the motors defined. Any of those motor centers, if someone has that defined, I feel it and I'm churning it. Okay. So it could be that willpower. It could be that adrenaline of the root. It could be their emotions, or it could be that sustainable sacral energy. The thing is, that's not mine. So none of that is going to be sustainable. And the same is true for you. That energy is not sustainable. So you have to be careful of burnout here as a reflector, and really make sure that you're taking the time to be in your own energetic space. Okay. You have to get out of everyone else's field of energy and into your own space, so that you can really come back to who you are in that moment, recognizing and understanding that who you are in that moment may not be the same person in 30 minutes or in 30 days, but who you are in that moment, and sort of clear that energetic field. So that's really, really important. Rest is important as well. For any non-sacral being, having good sleep habits is really important. And potentially even giving yourself time to sleep on your own, by yourself, again, in your own energetic space. That can be really helpful for you. Excuse me. And I also want to just sort of part with the reminder that nature is your home. Being in nature truly is, that's where there is no separation between you and nature as a reflector. And so spending time in an environment that can really, it's like, think of it as like cleansing your aura, like washing your centers, right? When you get in nature, it sort of brings you back to a reset point. And having that as a regular routine in your life can be tremendously helpful. So again, there's not a lot of information or insights. It's challenging for anyone to try to describe what it's like to be another type, though there are more of the other types in the world. So there's more observations we can make, and more sort of patterns that we can see and consistencies that we can find. With the reflector, it's the only consistency is the inconsistency, right? So there isn't a lot here that we can know. I encourage you, if you're a reflector, to try to find other reflectors to sort of bounce these ideas and these reflections and these the way of being, bounce it off of each other, see how it lands, and see if there are consistencies that you can find, and a little bit of a familiarity that you can find with other reflectors. I am here for you if you ever want to just sort of explore that. And certainly you can find other reflectors and other practitioners that can help, really begin to unravel what it means to be a reflector. But you are a unique, incredible, enigmatic, unexplainable, fluid, beautiful being in this world. And the role of the reflector in humanity is not insignificant. So really leaning into that reflectorness, the unusualness, the fluidity is going to be important, rather than trying to simply reflect back what other people think you ought to be or how you should be. It can be challenging to be a reflector as a child growing up, because you're being projected on, as well as being a parent. I want you to realize you're going to be reflecting back to your children, to your spouse at all times. And that can be uncomfortable. If you're aware of it, it can be a really beautiful opportunity for an opening for personal development for them. So that's what an amazing gift. So I hope this has been empowering and uplifting. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you want to just learn more about the way the chart works and human design and all of this good stuff, I invite you to join me for my free class next week. It's called Human Design Demystified. It's going to be on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The registration link is in the description here. Do get registered even if you can't make it live. I will send out a replay to all of you who are registered but couldn't make it. I do hope to see you there. The benefit of joining live is that you can ask questions as we go. So we're not going to have a dedicated time at the end for Q&A. However, I will be answering your questions as they pop up in the chat live while we go. So I encourage you to block that time off in your calendar if you can. Okay, my loves, I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I love you so much. I hope this series has been enlightening. I hope you have been watching and following along for each of the different types and checking them out so that you can begin to understand and have greater compassion for people in your life who are different from you, energetically speaking. And if you have any questions about any of the types, please feel free to shoot me a DM and I will get those questions answered. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all again here really soon. Bye for now.